And maintenance is not maintenance of the mother, it is of the child. So women should not move court expecting to be maintained because they have kids. We are not maintaining your lifestyle.
So how am I supposed to explain to my child once they grow up that I had to adopt them and yet
they are my child?
Yeah, yes, we are related. So how do I explain that? Welcome to another episode of Just Legal, a podcast by MNO Advocates. We are so excited to have you. I'm your host, Liz Derito. In today's episode, we get to discuss about children, and we brought some experts to, guide us into the whole conversation. So to my immediate right, we have
Samantha Masengeli. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. I am also an arbitrator with the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators Kenya. Other than that, I specialize in children matters, legal matters.
It's good to specify.
Yes, legal.
You're not
legal
changing
matters.
diapers.
Yeah, specifically adoptions and surrogacy, or if you like, alternative reproductive techniques. Yeah.
I am Sylvia Amamu Chitechi. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. I practice as a litigation and dispute resolution counsel, where I'm currently heading that department at MNO Advocates. Also a certified mediator, and despite being a litigation advocate across all board, today we'll be focusing on children's matters, which is also an area that we focus on as a firm.
Karibuni sana. Excited to have you on this conversation. In our previous episode, we talked about marriage. We tried to understand what a valid marriage, according to a Kenyan law, is. Then we talked about divorce. And after divorce, I think the next step is trying to figure out children. Mm-hmm. And to start us off, I'd want us to talk about children in this episode. Mm-hmm. Now that we've handled divorce, there are kids involved. What happens to these kids?
Yeah, so after divorce, there are kids who are left, and they're supposed to be taken care of by both parents. Mm-hmm. So I think in this episode, maybe we'll be focusing on what happens to these kids. How do these parents get to co-parent? Mm-hmm. And how do we make sure in the process of co-parenting the needs of the child are met, the child is taken care of? Mm-hmm. So in that regard, then, to answer the question about what are some of the things that people mostly fight about when it comes to children matters, then it is the issue of custody. Who gets to stay with the kids? How does the other person get to access the kids? And maintenance. How do we maintain the kids? Who pays fees? Who pays for their upbringing? So those are some of the questions that parents are usually left with after they have gone separate ways. Yeah, because remember, in marriage, they may have found a mechanism of working jointly, but then you're left here with estranged people and kids who still have to somehow be taken care of despite their parents being apart.
Okay.
Yeah. So in that case, then you'll find most of the time there is a disagreement. Maybe the father wants custody, maybe the mother wants full custody. You find instances where the mother does not want the father to see the children at all. Sometimes women feel they are completely done. They do not want to give access to the kids. So those are some of the things that now, where as advocates we come in to advise, we see how best these children are taken care of. So usually, before you even think of going to court as a lawyer, you give parties room to discuss. Most of the time, the communication is not completely broken off. Sometimes they may be able to communicate, but strictly just about the kids. So if you find a couple that are in a situation where they can have some decent form of conversation, then in that case, you can encourage them to discuss and come up with a structure that works in the taking care of these kids. So in those instances, then we will be discussing things like parental responsibility agreement. Okay. Which is just an agreement that is governing how we are going to take care of these children. So some of the things to consider in this parental responsibility agreement will be issues like who gets the custody. The actual custody, it's good we clarify, because there is legal custody and actual custody.
And could you also just tell us when you say custody, what do you mean?
When I say custody means you have the legal rights to this child. You understand? So that's legal custody means both of us as parents can make decisions pertaining this child.
Okay.
We can decide about the healthcare of this child, the education of this child, the upbringing. That is legal custody.
Okay.
Actual custody means I actually get to stay with this child.
Okay.
Actual, like in the actual sense, this child stays with me full time. And then when we discuss who stays with the child full time, then we bring in discussions of access or visitation by the other party who does not get to stay with the child full time. Yeah, so in terms of access, most of the time parties agree. In most situations, though it's not law, in most situations the child stays with the mother, because you'll find maybe the child, maybe the mother is very hands-on in the upbringing of the child, just also to create stability in the child's lifestyle, maybe going to school and back, instead of today they're in this house, tomorrow they're in another place. So also to try and create stability for the child. So in most instances, you'll find kids of tender years tend to stay with the mother.
Okay.
However, we do have exceptional circumstances where children have stayed with the father. Yes. So maybe you may find maybe the mother is not in the country. What happens then? You may find maybe the mother is unfit, but that is subject to proving before court.
So it's legally agreed, or the court just automatically agrees them this is a child of a tender age, they stay with the mother?
Most of the time you have to ask for it. You understand?
Okay.
When you get to court, it means you fail to agree.
Okay.
But right now I'm still talking about the parental responsibility agreement. If you can sit at the table and this man says maybe you can have the child half of the term, I have the child the remaining half. Or we can have a child during the school term, I get the child during the holidays. Or we can share the holidays 50-50 in terms of who stays with the child. Yes, there are those instances you can agree. You can agree you'll be seeing the child every alternate weekend during the school term, or every weekend, depending. So the goodness with having a parental responsibility agreement, it gives you the leeway to set your own terms as couples. So you are not imposing custody on someone. Maybe someone feels I want to stay with the child, so you can discuss, and also it gives room to children to foster relationships with both parents who have at least at a good place in terms of discussing.
So it's also possible for the father, for you to also agree that the father can stay with his children when they're in a tender age. Even if they're in a tender age, maybe he's really a hands-on dad. Okay. Maybe he was a stay-at-home dad and he was doing so much with the kids. In those circumstances, honestly, you can. Okay, so there is nothing wrong. There's even fathers take care of kids. Their fathers with full custody. Okay. Yeah, so it's not cast in stone that it goes to the mother. The mother. Oh, okay. Because previously, kids of tender years used to actually stay with the mother, because you're assuming this is a tender child. They may need care. Maybe they're still breastfeeding, things like those. The court used to consider. But nowadays, it is circumstantial. All right. Yeah. So.
Okay. I think something else that you need to mention about custody is when it comes to a parent accessing a child, there's no greater parent and there's no lesser parent. They each have equal rights to the child. So under no circumstances will any court, regardless, bar you from seeing your child. It will just regulate, like, this is how maybe it's supposed to be done. Or, so even if you come, despite whatever fights you've had during the divorce or during your marriage or whatever, every parent has the right to be able to contribute to their child's life.
Yeah, I wanted to say one thing that really guides parties when they're discussing the issue of children, it's usually the best interest of the kid. Okay. So whether or not you have a working relationship with the father of the child, you cannot bar this child from access and love and care from the dad. or from the
Or the
other
mom.
parent. You understand? So in these instances, a child has a right of love and care from both parents. It is actually a child's right. And also this child has the right to spend time with whichever parent, and also to literally be no, without going into maintenance fully, to be maintained by both parents. It is a joint responsibility in the upbringing of the child.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, in the instance where there's no agreement, that conversation is not happening, the relationship is very sour.
Yeah.
So what happens? And there's one parent who does not want, or there's an instance where there's a parent who does not want to take any responsibility of this child. What happens?
When we get to those instances, then that is when we would give our clients the option of going to court, because you can approach court for whichever reason. Every Kenyan has a right to access justice. So in these instances, you can approach court and file a children's case, either in terms of whether you want your child to be maintained, maybe the other party is not contributing, maybe the other party is denying you access to this child, or maybe there is just no structure that is working. You find yourself constantly fighting. You can find sometimes maybe you've agreed this person will take the child on a weekend, and then they disappear with the child for 2 weeks. You find, so as much as there may have been communication, there's no working structure. So if you get yourself in that instance, so that is when you move court to apply for a structure on custody of the child, on maintenance of the child, and general upbringing in matters touching the child. So I think we've touched on custody. It's the same thing with PRA. Who stays with the child? How do we share access to this child? Who can visit the child at what time? When it's your turn to have the child, also you are encouraged to foster communication with the other parent. You cannot block the child from speaking to their father or mother if it's your turn to have the custody of the child, depending on your agreement. Yeah, so in most cases now the court will determine. That's why we've talked about. Previously, courts would give children of tender years to the mother. However, nowadays it is circumstantial. In most instances, the custody of the kids is given to the mother. However, there are circumstances when the father can actually still file for custody. Nothing stops a dad from moving court for custody. So if you feel this mother is unfit, or maybe the kids are being left unattended, or maybe there are circumstances the mother is not present in the child's life, those are some of the circumstances that you can move court to get full custody of your child.
Okay.
Yes. So also, while in court, another issue for discussion is usually the maintenance. How do we maintain this child?
And what's the difference between custody and maintenance? Maybe we'll talk about that.
Yeah. So custody is basically who stays with the child, and how do we work around that? Understand? Maintenance is let me just say, financial responsibility.
Okay.
That comes to maintaining this child. And maintenance is not maintenance of the mother, it is of the child. So women should not move court expecting to be maintained because they have kids. We are not maintaining your lifestyle.
But
we are maintaining the child.
Is living with me.
Yeah.
Your child lives in a place.
Yeah.
So that house, rent needs to be paid.
They will never ask a man to pay your rent. However,
or a woman. Okay.
Exactly. However, if your partner is gracious enough,
oh really,
they will say,
it's
I will cater. Let me tell you why. It is assumed, even if you didn't have this child, you would be able to put a roof over your head, right?
Okay. Food,
you'll be able to feed yourself. It is just only now that there is a child, this partner can contribute to feeding this child.
Okay.
But it is not maintenance to you,
the parent.
If you maybe the man can decide to pay rent, or even the woman, like we've said, because maybe the child was accustomed to a certain lifestyle, and now that you're separated, maybe you're jobless, and you can only afford a car excuse somewhere. This man can step up and like, okay, because I don't want to move the child from the school, I can pay rent for you around.
But it's not a requirement.
It is not a requirement, but it is a requirement to provide for the child.
But just to mention something,
Yeah.
when it comes to, like, maybe if you now, the last episode we spoke about divorce and marriage and all. Out of divorce, there's something we should have mentioned called alimony. Yeah.
Okay.
So there is alimony which comes to you after divorce, where if your husband or if your wife was taking care of you in one way or another, and you're at a position where you're not able to, then so that is where
they should continue to do.
They can they can continue to do
which
so.
Is
they
expected
can give,
by
so if you prove that and it's actually then they can continue to do that. So that one is different. So now that is where now if you're now the mother and you have a child, yours is, or if you're the father, what comes to you is the alimony. But then what is for the child is now the maintenance.
Yeah.
So that is where the difference is.
Well, I think this is going to be quite a conversation, because we've had so many cases
where people think now that
when they ask for maintenance is maintaining them.
My right. It's not maintaining them. That one is for the child. But now for you, now if you want to come and say, you know what, my spouse was providing for me, and now
that's a whole different conversation.
It's something else that is on a very different
that is
level.
usually comes up in the mostly after divorce, partly during matrimonial property, but you cannot bring that issue in the children's court.
Okay.
You should also talk about children's courts have jurisdiction to deal with matters touching with children. So you cannot bring an issue of alimony, maintenance, divorce, property. The court will not handle it.
Okay.
If you file a case and you bring all these issues at once, they will direct you to the correct forum. Okay. Yeah, but that is a different whole scope that you have to prove.
Okay.
Yeah, but for the kids, it is usually, in fact, most of the time, even if court orders maintenance, in very few instances, will the man directly give money to the mother of the child. Let's say if the man has been ordered to provide maintenance, or the woman the other way around if the man has full custody. You understand? So in those instances, you'll find someone will even pay for you, give you a card for Carrefour, go and shop, where he can monitor what you are doing and the shopping, and he has to approve before payment goes through. But they will not give you. We have those. Okay, not that they can. There are some who do. There are sometimes the court can even order you to provide maintenance up to a certain amount per month. There are those instances where you're expected to give money because it's a court order. You understand? Yeah, so what I need to explain in terms of maintenance, without juggling all these things at once, when you're asking for maintenance, you have first to come to court and give court what amount do you use to maintain this child. Personally, let's say as a mother, you have custody of the child right now, so you're giving a breakdown. This is how much I use in shopping. This is how much I'm paying the nanny. This is how much I use in school fees.
Okay.
This is how much I use in entertaining the kid. This is how much I use in even rent, to give shelter, to clothing, all these things. So you give a breakdown of your expenses. And then something else, children's courts will usually ask you to provide an affidavit of means. An affidavit of means basically means it's an affidavit showing your current income and your current expenses. You understand? Okay. So if you're employed, you'll be required to provide your most recent pay slip. Okay. And in that pay slip, you'll also give down a breakdown of your expenses. You're like, yes, maybe I'm earning a certain amount. It could be, let's use a figure of 100,000, but my expenses, including taking care of this child, they're coming to about 150. So I'm constantly in a deficit. I need this other parent to step in and assist me in terms of maintaining the child. Okay. So when the other parent is asked to step in, they'll probably, most of the time, the court will ask them to give a certain, based on your expenses. So say if you've come up with an expense of 50K on food and what. So the court can direct that maybe they pay a certain amount to you in terms of maintaining, in helping for food. Mostly they'll call it food. And then the court will direct maybe, because you live with that child, you should be able to provide shelter for yourself. You'll cater for your own rent. Okay. And then maybe the court can now direct maybe the guy to pay things like school fees, because you are also taking care of other bills in this other side. It's not usually cast in stone, but sometimes it happens that way, that the man will pay school fees and they'll give you a certain percentage of maintenance and they'll provide the child with a working medical cover to avoid the issues of health cares. Those are some of the things that the court will direct. However, it's important for people to understand that parental responsibility is joint.
Okay.
Whether you are unemployed and this other one is earning $1 million, there is a degree of expectation that you, even if you're unemployed, you would feed yourself. You have to somehow chip in something. So once courts can give directions on how each party will contribute, because they'll also have to assess the other party's affidavit of means and their capabilities. So the court will award based on capabilities. It's not because you're earning a hand. It's not 50-50. It's not 50-50. Whether if your means are the same, then it's 50-50.
And it doesn't matter a particular gender. Like if the mother is also making more money.
Yes.
So it's about capability.
Yes. The court will. That's why they need to file an affidavit of means. Also on custody, the court will analyze. In some instances, the court can decide to interview the child. They see where if the child is of an age where they can be interviewed, maybe 6, 7, they'll be asked, where do you, in those instances, a few instances where the court is feeling, maybe I need to find out where does the child prefer staying. Sometimes they can send children officers to assess the environment in which you are staying with the child, and you who is asking for custody, which is this environment you want to bring the child in. Are there measures in place to see this is a child-friendly environment? So courts will go over and above to just ensure this child is taken care of.
Okay.
So even whoever is getting custody, they can be in a position to. And then if you go to court, also the court can give directions on this other party. You can see the kid on alternate weekends. You can have the kids. You can share birthdays. You decide how you'll share birthdays, holidays. Yeah, things like those. So basically, that's what happens. So we take parties through. We take you through the process. If the negotiations fail, we take you to court. Along the way, we are directing you up to the last point when the court gives a final decision on how you'll be able to bring up the child.
Okay.
Yeah. That happens to responsibility as biological parents. However, there are also other instances when you can assume responsibilities of our child.
Okay.
Yeah, which I think now Samantha should be in a position to take us through.
First things first, I would like to start by when Sylvia was talking, she kept on saying the man will pay, the guy will pay. Usually, I think it doesn't mean that also the other spouse, the woman, is if it's the lady, it doesn't mean that they cannot also contribute. But most of the time, you'd find that the child actually stays with the mother. Yes, in most of the time. So you find it is actually the father who is paying, but it doesn't mean that now if it is cast
just to clarify.
It is cast on stone. And then something else I would like to mention is whatever you agree on, even the orders that the court gives, they are subject to review. So depending on how, because today you could have a job, tomorrow you could not. Yes. So once the court, and you come and tell the court, I used to pay 50,000 towards maintenance of the child, but now my job can't allow me to do that because I've lost my job, so I can only pay half of that. So the courts are very accommodative, and I think children courts are one of the most friendly places that I've found where you can be able to go and practice. Yes, because also, it's really about the best interest of the child.
Okay.
Yes.
It's good to hear that.
Yeah, also just to add on that before she starts, is that children's courts are one of those courts that the matter is never closed. You see the way in other cases where when a matter is done, judgment is entered, that's it. So in children cases, you can keep going back to court until the child is 18. It's never completely closed. Even if a case is over, matters of which anything can come up. You may find now you're not in a position to continue having custody. You want to transfer full custody to the father. So the way she has said, dynamics will change and will bring up the child, whether it's finances, whether it's capacity to have a custody. When that happens, you can move court at any time. So children's cases never completely end in that logic.
So aside from having now the biological parents who acquire rights by virtue of them being biological parents, there are other ways that you can acquire parental rights over a child. We have adoption, we have foster care, we have guardianship, and then we have the alternative reproductive techniques that is now something new it's not new really, it's just now something that has now come to light, but it used to be there. Yeah. So the adoption process is it has been simplified, especially last year with the coming in of the new Children's Act, which so it has been simplified. We have kinship adoptions, and then now we have the other adoption. Kinship adoption means like either both of the people who want to adopt the child are related to the child, or either one of them is related to the child. But before I head there, I will start by saying who is allowed to adopt a child and which child can be adopted by So in Kenya, we have, you should be above the age of 25 years.
Oh, okay.
Yes, you should be above the age, actually, you should be above the age of 25. And you should at least be 21 years older than the child that you intend to adopt. But then, also there are special circumstances where if maybe a parent has passed on, and then there is an elder or a cousin, or so I would want to adopt this child and have the child. So that one is also allowed. So you can say I am fine, I'm 21 years old, but I have this 2-year-old and I'm able to take care of
this is my cousin,
so I want to take that, so it's allowed. And then also you should be financially stable in a way that you can be able to provide for this child. So when you now come with your papers for adoption, you need to prove that this is how much I earn, or this is the business that I do, so this can be able to enable me to take care of this child. And then also you don't necessarily have to be married, but it's usually advised,
because I've seen that conversation elsewhere where people would say, for you to adopt, you need to be married.
No. You don't necessarily need to be married, but then our laws in Kenya are still a bit hardened on that bit, because you can find that when you're a man, it's a bit difficult for you to adopt. Yes, especially if you're adopting a child of the opposite sex.
Yes. Something I also wanted to ask. Does it matter? Like, if I'm a woman, do I have to adopt a girl?
No, for women it's very open. It's very open.
So
I can adopt. For men, you have to. It's almost given that if you're adopting and you're single, then you will have to adopt a male child. And it takes you through a lot of very rigorous processes for you to even be able to get that. So that's why you'd find it's very much encouraged, either unless you are related to this child in one way, maybe you're a cousin, you are even uncles now, it's becoming a problem. For them to be because of the sexual abuse and all that. So adoption societies are a bit when it comes to that.
If there's one thing I'm picking from this episode is just how much the Children's Court is really, really, really committed towards the best interest of this child, of children, really.
Yes, because you see, the other problem, the other thing is Kenya, we are like on tier 1 when it comes to human trafficking, child trafficking. We are like up there. So it's usually like by the time a court agrees to an adoption, and for you to take a child that isn't yours, it's a process. It is really a process. And then with that, I also need to mention that there is a moratorium. By a moratorium, I mean there is an order that was given by the government on international adoption.
That's the next thing I wanted to ask.
So that was done like in 2014, and from then on, international adoptions are no longer happening, because people used Kenya to come from wherever to come and adopt children. Then they're taken,
and you see such nasty stories
because of that. That's the problem. So because once this child is taken away, they are adopted and they're everything. It's like what do I call this? Like quiet possession or something like that. You've taken the child away. This is now your child. So the government doesn't follow up
or not something.
It doesn't follow up, which is very different from what we have in other countries, where a social worker will come and come and visit once in a while. For Kenya, once you take the child, that is your child, regardless of now what happens. Okay. So now for a child,
Kinship adoption.
Kinship adoption. Now this other adoption for you to be able to now adopt a child. Now that is from if you're not related to the child. First of all, yes, you need to. You
With
need
the
to,
previous qualifications.
Yes. Now it needs to be the child needs to be above the age of 6 weeks.
Or 6 weeks.
Yes, 6 weeks. Actually, it's 6 weeks to 6 months, depending.
Okay.
Depending, because I've seen situations where you're even allowed to adopt they're allowed to adopt at birth, but that is not adoption. You're just given something called legal custody, which is guardianship, basically, which I will explain later on. So you can take care of this child up to when this child gets to the age of 6 months. Now that is when you can institute adoption proceedings. So when the child is below the age of below 6 months, you cannot be able to adopt. Yeah. Then the other thing, now after 6 months, now they have to come and you'll be given a period of time where you can be able to stay with the child. Now, if you've taken the child at 6 months, but if you've taken the child at birth, there will be someone who will still come. A children officer will still come to visit during that time for them to see that, oh, this is what is happening. You're taking care of the child. Yes. So you will be given from where you're getting the child, either if it's the police station or if it is a children's home or if it is a hospital. Where this child has been abandoned or something. So you will be given papers, usually either by the children office, because you need to inform them, I have this child with me. When you come in, you cannot choose the child you want to adopt.
No, from
now if this now other adoption. If you're picking the child from the age of 6 months, you can't choose a child you want to adopt. You will come to the adoption society or you will come to the children's home. You will tell them, I want a child. You can't pick the sex of the child. You can't pick the child that you want to adopt.
Wow.
Yes. So because if you now do that, it changes. It now becomes foster care. Because in foster care, where you are now allowed to take care of this child up to a certain point, as they are still finding the child a suitable home where they can live. So it can be 3 months, 6 months, it can be a year or something. You are allowed to pick. You can say, I'm picking children from the age of 4 to 8. I'll take care of that. Or I'm picking teenagers only. You are allowed to.
But that's foster.
But now that is foster care. When you pick a child, now if you come and you select a child, you cannot be allowed to adopt that child in future, regardless.
What if you foster first?
Of the relation, you can't.
You foster, then you adopt.
Now, in other countries, it's allowed. In Kenya, it's not allowed. Once, if you start with fostering a child, it is very difficult. You can only now gain legal guardianship over this child. But you cannot adopt this child. Yes. So if you want from the very beginning, they say, because now that looks like I took this child, nikaona, we match based on that. So now that is why I want to pick this child. So it means that if you and this child did not agree, you would have brought this child back. That is what it means. So that is why a foster care cannot transition into an adoption.
Okay.
It can't.
Just to clarify, you said in Kenya you can adopt a child from 6 weeks to 6 months.
Yes.
So you cannot adopt a child maybe when they're 18?
No, you can. No, I said from 6 months onwards. Between 6 months and 18. Yes, that's
18 years. Or 6 months
and 18 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
But 6 weeks...
between when you pick this child, like maybe 6 or even day 1, even if this child is 1 day old, what you will be given is just guardianship.
Oh, guardianship.
Yes, it will just be guardianship. Like you are taking care of this child on behalf of. Yeah. Okay. So that one now can transition into adoption, because now you can say, I have stayed with this child, I have been doing this, so I want this to be permanent. And again, you don't pick that child, because they will call you, your name is there. You will tell them, I'm looking for a child maybe between this age and this age. So they'll call you and they'll say, there is a mama who gave birth, but either she passed on or either she left the child. So meanwhile, can you take care of this child as we still try to find? That's what they're doing, because they already have your application. So that's what we've done. So between that time and now the 6 months, you will just be having guardianship over the child.
Legal guardianship.
Yes.
So we've discussed adoption. Now let's get into foster care.
Yeah, now foster care, like I said, you are taking care of these children on behalf of maybe the adoption society, or not the adoption society, on behalf of the children's home that they are in.
Children's home.
Yes, or because you've picked them from somewhere, or maybe the street or something like that. You're allowed to, because you're giving them a home as they're trying to find and a better home for them. Yes. So that one, you are supported by the government.
By support, you mean like the government pays me?
Financial
support.
Financial support.
Okay.
But then now, financial support, so for each child, the government gives, regardless of the age and whatever, the government gives you some financial support to be able to take care of this child. Okay. So you can say, I'm taking care of for this period, and then maybe after 1 year, you can either renew, or you can say, I feel like I'm a bit strung up, so you can give it. Can someone else pick it? So that is the freedom that is there with foster care, which is not there with adoption, which is not there with guardianship. Yes.
So and do these children's homes also follow certain regulations? Or if I have my own children's home and I see a child in need, or a child is born, can I just go pick them?
Yes, they can pick. So if you have, if we know, like for example, this area, like Riverside, for example, has this and this and this. So it's like I have a children's home here, and then someone has found a child maybe outside of this building. Yeah, they can call the children's home and say, I found this child. So they pick the child, then the children's home will come and pick the child. They will go report to the police station that we have this child, and then now it will be in their care. So for them, they can be able to pick. They can even go to the streets and pick and say, okay, we are picking this and this and this. They report it to the police station. So now that the government, now with the police, it's like the government knows that this is, we have these children in our custody, and we are taking care of these children.
But I'm sure, of course, there are laws that govern children's homes. You don't just form a children's home because you feel you have space. There are some of those qualifications that you have to get. There are some of those scrutiny and assessments to see if you can accommodate these kids that you want to raise.
Again, especially because of exploitation, especially because of human trafficking and all that. So
there's usually like a common question that people ask. Can you adopt an adult? Me, I want to be adopted by Idris Elba.
Well,
no, you can't.
After 18, that's it.
After 18, this is an adult. So you can't.
Tuache kuandikia celebrities adopt me.
You can't. Then something else I should mention is, so after now, you've taken the child, you've been now given the child is in your custody. So you come and file, and you file a petition, an adoption. So that one is filed at the High Court. So in this, you come and say, I am so and so, and I want to adopt this child either together with my wife or with if now it's or myself. Like if you're adopting like a single person, yes, and then now the courts will look at it. You have to have something called a legal guardian. Even as you're adopting, there has to be someone else who will come and stand in for you in the event that something happens to you and you're incapacitated. So you have to do that, yes. And then mostly it's usually maybe a friend, somebody who has known you for a very long time. But what is usually advised is get a family member, who will be able to take care of this child. So that one is included in the adoption. Then something else. Now you go through the process. Adoption. This is now adoption.
Adoption.
Yes. Now, once it's agreed, and then now, the courts are convinced that you have the best intentions for this child. Then now the adoption is given. If you have all your papers, and by all your papers I mean certificate of good conduct, recommendations, and all that. An adoption process is supposed to take about 3 to about 6 months. But then now if there are other issues now, because by other issues I mean you have been visited by the Director of Children's Services and they have found maybe it's not conducive, your home is not conducive, they have to make recommendations for you to do this and this and this. Then you have to get a certificate from an adoption society, and we have one in Langat. You have Little Angels, like for example we have Little Angels. So Little Angels is the adoption agency that will declare your child this child free for adoption. By that, it means that this child does not have any other relative that is claiming them, or if there is a relative that is claiming, they are not able to take care of this child. So you need to have that. You need to have a report from the adoption agency saying that it's okay for you to adopt the child. So now you have that certificate of freeing. Then now you have the Director of Children's Services, who I was told the other day by court, the Director of Children's Services is the owner of all the children in Kenya. So you need to have a report from the Director of Children's Services saying that it is okay. You can be able to take this child. So now those are the 2 documents that are really needed. Then now you file, then now you will get an adoption order allowing you to adopt. After that, now you need to go to the registrar of adoptions. We have the Registrar of Births and Deaths, which is the same place where now we register children for adoption. A while back, like just before last year, we just used to have a register for adopted children, and then they never used to be given birth certificates. So you just be given like an adoption, But then it was brought to court, and it was said to be very discriminatory. Because now if I have adopted this child, I have become the parent of this child. So this child, just like any other child, needs to have a birth certificate that says, me and my spouse, we are the parents of this child. Yes, so that now that it is entered, so now they have a birth certificate. So now after the name of the child has now been entered into the register, the adoption register, then now adopted. Then from there, the registrar of births, you'll now be taken to where you get now the birth certificate. You now apply. So the birth certificate will come in the name of now yourself and your spouse as parents of this. But then the first reference point in future for any whatever reason will always be the adoption register. Because that's where someone would want to know, okay, fine. Because this child you got this child when they were 8 years old. So what happened before those 8 years? Yeah. So it has to be shown that, okay, the child was adopted. Then what else? Kinship adoption. Yeah. Kinship adoption has been very much fast-tracked because that is what is being encouraged. For families to take up responsibility for their relative. If you're able to take care of this child, then the court will not even give you grief over it. You will go, you'll file your documents, and then you'll be able to have the child. It's just now that this other process now, where you are not related to the child, that is where a lot of screening needs to be done because of the issues of human trafficking and
a lot of the cases that have been there, sexual abuse, taking advantage of these kids.
Then now I think I'm now done with adoptions. I want to talk about legal guardianship. Legal guardianship is where you are given parental responsibility over this child up to a certain age, which is 18. So which it means that you are not adopting this child, the difference between that is an adopted child gets equal rights to a biological child, which means this child can be able to inherit from you, and this child is as much your child, all family functions, everything now, it becomes your child. Yes, which is now very different from legal guardianship, because in legal guardianship, I'll just come and say, okay, this person was my guardian, they were taking care of me. So what the court can give in the event that something maybe happens to your guardian is they can say, tutaendelea, you'll be taken care of this way. But the right for you to be able to inherit and all that, it's not. It's not there. And you see, legal guardianship would be maybe my parents are still alive, but for one reason or another, they can't take care of me. But then I have a relative or a friend who can be able to take care of me. But now, since we can't keep on calling, tunaweka jina gani kwa birth certificate kwa shule, sawa. Tutamnunulia nini? No. So now that is where the legal guardianship comes in. So I can make those decisions as a legal guardian without necessarily having to consult the parents all the time. Like maybe the child is sick, we need to this and this and this to be done. We needs to undergo surgery and all that. So I don't need to go and find the parent to do that.
But the parents exist.
The parents can exist. Sometimes the parents don't exist.
But sometimes you'd find instances where for you to get to assume full guardianship or even make an application, it's instances where both parents have passed away. So in that case, then you can apply to be a guardian without necessarily adopting.
Oh, okay.
You take care of this child until they are about 18 years, and then from there, they can be free without the responsibility of adoption fully.
I'm asking because I'm thinking of how we've seen instances and cases where people will take care of relatives. Like in shags, you get these niece, cousin, you take care of them. You're the one who pays their school fees. You're the one who's responsible of what they eat, you know. So can you apply for legal guardianship? And do the parents need to know?
Yes, because but you know, I used to really assume that most of the time guardianship happens when parents have left completely, where you're saying, I am not the mother, but I am the grandmother. I want to take care of this child fully. You understand? In other instances, you can aid, but they are not fully transferring. To become a legal guardian completely, then someone has to fully. I don't even think it usually happens in the instance where both parents are alive and present. Being poor does not make you a bad parent. You understand? There's the part where now there has to be some form of consent for you to take care of the child, but with a certain degree of them coming in here and there. But full guardianship has to come where this child has completely no parents. You understand?
Okay. And does the child have a say in it? Can they be like, no, I don't want? Does a child choose? And I wanted to also ask, when it comes to adoption, I've been adopted. Do I have a choice?
You know, there are instances where that can also can happen. Because I have done, I've come across a situation where this mother, she had four children. Yeah, and then she got pregnant again. Then she was like, I cannot take care of the one that I'm carrying right now, because I already have 4 children. Yeah, so I am going to give this child up. So I am transferring my parental responsibilities to this person. So from that point on, this, and then also the father was like, up and your sisi tumefika, we cannot be able to take care, and you see, we can also not terminate the pregnancy. We want this child to live. So now by the time that this child was being born, they already had legal guardianship. These other people could not be transferred to them. Yes.
I remember when we were beginning the conversation, we talked about how you can take a child from day one.
Yes.
But then up to the age of 6 months, that's legal guardianship.
Yes.
Okay.
It's just basically that. And then now there are also other forms of you gaining parental responsibility of a child, like now the assisted reproductive techniques.
Okay.
And for that, I will it's a very wide thing. So I will specifically just talk about
another episode on that.
I will specifically just talk about surrogacy, which is now becoming very, 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 very. It's now.
Popular.
Yes, popular. It's becoming which never used to be there.
So it's actually happening in Kenya.
It is. It's happening in Kenya. So
under the guidelines of the law.
But it's important to know that there are no regulations.
We don't have in the world anywhere.
There are no regulations on surrogacy.
There are no laws.
There are no laws. So
but then
what does that mean?
And regulations.
People,
there are no laws.
What's the difference?
It's
you see, the way we have statutes, we have the Children's Act. We don't have anything on surrogacy, and the Children's Act is not touching on surrogacy. So it is a very gray area on practitioners, even in terms of advising the issue of surrogacy. Though it is a subject, there some of these things are happening. It's a conversation we should be having. However, we do not have statutes that completely put in place laws that govern surrogacy. What happens in surrogacy? Who can be a surrogate? To what extent? So you see the way statutes define exactly what is supposed to happen. In this area, it is vague.
Okay.
So basically, surrogacy is having someone else, and in this case, a woman, carrying a child on your behalf. Yeah. By that, I mean, like, if I probably have fertility issues and I've been trying, I'm not able to do that, then I can be able to get through either artificial insemination. We have IVF, which is in vitro fertilization, and then we have IUI. In vitro fertilization means they take like the sperm of the biological parent together with the ovary of either the donor or the biological mother. Then now it is fertilized, and then it is now put in the
body.
Yes, in the body of now the surrogate. Or the other bit is now sperm will be introduced to the body of this surrogate. So she will be both the donor, the egg, and then she'll also be that carries that. So that is what. So now after a point in time, yes, then now the child is born, but the child now belongs to this. Yeah. So how do you transfer rights in that instance? Surrogate in surrogacy, we don't, like I said, we don't have laws, but then the United Nations and also the African Charter on Children, yes, has come up with all these regulations to try, and because it's something that is happening, so we are alive to that fact. Yeah, it says, well, first of all, you should be above the age of 25. Yeah, for you to be able to be a surrogate. And now they are insisting on the fact that you should at least have had a child of your own, even if it's one child, for you to be able to. What happened is, like, people are just doing it, like, I need the money, so I can be able to I can carry the child. But now, once you give this child away, then what now happens to you? Because there is that bit where I can carry a child for you, and then in future I'm not able to have a child. Does that mean I'll come and pick this child, the one I carried for you?
Or change my mind?
Yes, because they're those
At the time of giving birth, I decided I don't want to give you.
I'm like, no.
Exactly. So those are now the kinds of things that we are trying to regulate. With a bit of surrogacy. Then the other thing is also the family of the surrogate. They also need to go through counseling and everything. Because if this surrogate has children, these children are seeing their mother pregnant.
Well, they're not
and at the end of 9 months, they're expecting a baby to come. So once the baby doesn't come home, then what happens?
What happened to the baby?
What happened to the baby? Yeah, so those are also the other things that the law is trying. So coming down to an agreement where so you come to me as your lawyer and tunakubaliana. Yeah, you and maybe the parents say that we have chosen, or so and so has agreed to be a surrogate. So she will carry a baby for us. So depending on the agreement that you and the birth parents, the parents of this child have, if either it will be the fertilized egg will be put into you, or if you'll be donating yes, so that one also has to be put down in the agreement. So that bit, then we'll say that now you'll be able to compensate. You are not being paid. You cannot be paid to carry a human being.
You're going to be
It is not. Yes. So to compensate you, because the body goes through so much when you're pregnant, so they will compensate you for that. So how much will be how much will the compensation be, and what are the circumstances that So you also need to agree on that. The other thing that you need to also agree on is at the end of this, once this child is born, you'll be able to willingly give this child to the parents. But you see, now it's not enforceable. It's not a contract that is enforceable
here.
We don't have laws.
It's not enforceable.
So it's mostly actually on good faith.
I hope you will stick to our agreements.
I hope we stick,
because if I don't, Pia, there's nothing you'll do.
Wow.
To do.
Yes.
Wow.
But it is there, it is happening. So me, I'm here. I am holding on to the faith that at the end of this,
you'll honor.
Yes, you'll honor the agreement. And then now in Kenya, once a child is born, regardless of whether this child is related to the mother or not, once the child is born, the name in the birth certificate will be the mother, the birth mother. So what we do now is we have to go through the adoption process, regardless of the fact that you're the biological parents of this child.
Wow.
So once the child is born, now for your name to appear on this child's birth certificate, you have to go through the
Legal process of adoption.
Yes. So now that is the only bit that the Kenyan courts have been able to really help when it comes to surrogacy. So once the child now the child has been born, you go through court, you do the adoption process, and then now with the consent, because now the birth mother has to consent, which means she will be transferring parental rights to you. Yes, relinquishing her parental rights and transferring them to you. So as I was saying earlier, there is the courts in Kenya have allowed for us to be able to adopt through that, because like I said, once you give birth in Kenya, it's the name of the birth mother, the birth mother that comes into the birth certificate. So for now, the parents of the child who's been born through surrogacy, for them to acquire now the rights, you have to transfer this. The other thing is also most of the clients that we are getting are maybe people from outside the country, are foreigners. So you also need to ensure that whatever laws that whatever you're putting in your agreement and the way you are actually transitioning your adoption and everything has to mimic the laws on the other side. Because I can be a Kenyan and I'm coming here to get my child. Maybe my surrogate mother is here, but I am a citizen of the United Kingdom. So I have to ensure that all this the laws that I'm going through here to acquire the parental rights in Kenya for this child are in one way or another mimicking the laws that are in the United Kingdom.
But then I do have a question though. Adoption is restricted to people, foreigners. So how is surrogacy happening?
Kinship adoption, because this child is related to you. Because you've donated your sperm. So this child is related to you. So now that becomes the kinship adoption bit. So that is important, because on the other side, unlike Kenya,
but then another question, sorry. If I've donated sperm, where am I adopting? This is my child.
Exactly. And you see,
if we carry out a DNA test, this is my child.
And you see now,
how am I adopting?
You are adopting because you need to acquire parental
cancel.
Yes.
Like I do understand that point, but I'm just saying
you have to. You see, no. You see, that is where
the complications that are coming.
Exactly.
It does not have to be that complicated.
It doesn't. But now we don't have any laws.
This is all because all this, the complication that Sylvia is talking about, is all because we really do not have very clear laws around surrogacy.
Yes. So we just go ahead and we use what is there. And what is there for us to be able to acquire parental rights? It's adoption. So that is what you take. So even if sadly you are related to this child, you will still have to. Somebody once asked me, so how am I supposed to explain to my child once they grow up that I had to adopt them and yet
they are my child?
Yes, we are related. So how do I explain that? But now that just comes to show that maybe in future as time goes by, because currently we already have 2 bills in Parliament on surrogacy that are waiting to be passed, which haven't been passed yet. Hopefully they will be passed soon. So we have those that will now help us to be able to regulate that. But you see, also the world, and especially Africa, we are still about very, very, very ish when it comes to matters that. But then that doesn't mean that you cannot get, if you and your spouse desire to have a child and you're not able to have a child, there is the option of surrogacy. So you can be able to come, and as much as we have all this, your lawyers can be able to guide you through a way that will ensure that at the end of the day, you legally have parental rights and responsibilities over your child.
I think this is one process that you truly do need to seek legal advisory. From the very onset all the way through. Because there's so many things
that happen, because
and it's such an intricate
you can end up being arrested for human trafficking and all that when this child is actually your child.
Oh wow. Okay.
It was quite informative.
It was quite a conversation. I think we've learned so much, and I still do feel like there's so much more that we could talk about.
Haven't explored yet.
We'll definitely be inviting you again, Samantha. Thank you so much for that. We've learned so much. It's been quite a conversation. I'm sure our viewers are going to have so many questions. So please leave those questions in the comments. Let us know your thoughts on these. Please share this content with your friends. And just walk into our offices. Our head office is at Chania Avenue, CMS Africa, 8th floor. Come visit us. We also have another office in Kakamega. So please just call us. We're going to leave our details in the information box. So just call us, text us, comment, and let us know your thoughts. So it's been such an honor.
It was a very informative session. I personally also feel like I've taken a lot of information. It's an area worth focusing on. So experts, you have delivered on the expertise.
So guys, thank you for watching. Keep it just legal. Till next time, see you.